Welcome to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 World Tour. I believe this is episode 22, something like that. We are taking off from Lille, France, and going to try to get to Paris and perhaps a few other places as well. I just need to kind of figure it out as we go. I don't have any plan really, so I'm just kind of taking a look at the map of France and we'll decide where we get to in this episode, but we're going to head towards Paris at least. Currently it is 6:32 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday, January 5th, 2024. I've changed the time here in Lille, France to, I think it was just before 9, I think around 8. Let me look. Yeah, 8:42 a.m. I disabled live weather because it's apparently pouring rain right now in Lille, France, and you couldn't see anything. So we are going to take off in the morning and get a little bit of the sunrise on our flight and kind of make our way towards Paris. Oops, I don't want to zoom in there. Let me fix that. Just looking at the map. Just trying to see if there's anything we should see on the way. I do want to get to like Strasbourg and things like that, but I think that'll be... This is pretty far away from where we are. In Reims, or however you say it. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing all these. I guess we'll fly over... I don't know how to pronounce it. Amiens. Amiens. I'm sure that's not how you pronounce it. Amiens. Something. We'll fly over that on the way to Paris, but I don't really see anything else we need to see. So, we'll fire up the engine. As far as podcasts go, I think we're going to listen to today's episode of the Tony Kornheiser Show, the Friday, January 5th episode of that. And then, after that, we will listen to the Sharp and Handley Show from Omaha, Nebraska, for Friday, January 5th as well. But starting out, Tony Kornheiser Show from Friday, January 5th, 2024, starting up now.
Also get picks from Chuck Todd, James Carville, Jeff Mon, Reginald the Monkey. But first, as always, commerce. My 13-year-old acts like a puppy again. I'm not in.
Previously on the Tony Kornheiser Show.
Yeah, because, they have 5 sacks on Milrow in the first half. They totally dominate the first half, and they're up by 3 or something like that. And, yeah, I'm probably a glass half-empty guy, because I would have said, well, we have no chance, because we should be up by 20 with the statistics, right? That's what I would have said.
Well, no question. I have been talking to you for the last couple of years. You're definitely a glass half-empty guy. You can have a 6-foot putt for par, and you'd be like, oh, I'm going to miss this low. It's like, it's a straight putt, buddy. It's like, put it in the hole.
Okay.
The Tony Kornheiser Show is on now.
Yeah, from Joe Rizzo in Oak Hill, Virginia. Your glass is half empty? Sorry. I think we've all been listening long enough to know the glass is bone dry. On a happier note from Jason Reed in Beaverton, Oregon. Did I hear Michael say on Monday's show that your favorite Pinot Noir comes from Flowers Vineyards and Winery? Because if so, that was a David Aldridge moment for me. I know the winemaker at Flowers well enough that I could probably get you a box of that with an email or a phone call. I'm that guy that sent you the Martin & Sons maple syrup about a year ago from Rhinelander, Wisconsin, so you can be assured my family connections are extensive and of sufficient quality. You indicated you were not a maple syrup guy. Occasionally I am. Like I have pancakes once every, 10 years. And I'll put syrup on them then. I'm not but I don't use it a lot. So perhaps I can make it up to you with some Pinot to be consumed standing over the kitchen sink. This is a keeper.
Yes, email to save. We'll do some tasting notes.
We are loaded today. We are guest loaded today. And Chuck Todd joins us early in the show. And this week's picks with Chuck Todd and Reginald the Monkey are brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. I should say that last week, everybody took gas, including Chuck Todd. But Chuck Todd was 3-2-2. He's the only person or ape to have a winning record last week, and he's now 73, 51, and 3 overall, plus 22. So if you're betting with Chuck, you're making big money. Congratulations, you were the only winner last week.
Well, I appreciate that. This is a scary moment to be in the leadoff spot because, you know, I blow this and nobody listens to the rest of the podcast. Right? Like this is I feel a huge responsibility.
Well, good. Then you'll come through and we'll be fine. Let's start. We got a lot of games. Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh Steelers in a division game on the road against Baltimore, a true rival. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 3.5-point favorites on the road because Lamar Jackson is not going to play. There's no other explanation that makes any sense whatsoever. Pittsburgh minus 3.5. This is a scary game. Nobody would actually bet this game with real money, right?
I don't think so because how do you know if Baltimore? I mean, okay, Lamar's not playing, but is Baltimore rolling over? This is the team. They never lose at exhibition games.
That's right.
They don't lose preseason games.
That's right.
So the idea that somehow the second stringers, the backups, whatever, are not going to know how to win a game, you know, and 3.5. I mean, if you're going to make me bet this, which you do,
yeah,
give me the hook, give me the half point, because I don't. If Pittsburgh wins this game, this feels like messy weather, which we know, right? Ugly game. It's going to be 13-10, something like that, right?
So you will take 3.5. You'll take
the half point feels like what you're betting here.
Okay. So you got Baltimore. That's a game I'd stay away from. Here's a game that's a straight-up playoff game. The winner is going to get into the playoffs straight up. Houston at Indianapolis. The road team, Houston, is favored by 1.5, which is odd. But I assume that's because C.J. Stroud is back and healthy. There's no other explanation to me. Who are you taking this? A game that I actually don't want to watch. I don't like watching either of these teams, honestly.
And you know your reward would be if you did watch it. You got to watch one of them next Saturday, right? They're going to be in the.
That's right.
The winner of this game is in the worst playoff time slot game the following week.
Right.
Like they're going to be in the 10 o'clock in the morning game, or whatever it is that they do. I'm with you. I don't understand why Houston's favored, actually. Because yes, Stroud's back, but they have all these other injuries. He doesn't have his best receiver, that Tank Dell guy, and I don't know. The Colts, they don't have men playing sloppy ball. Give me the Colts.
You're going to take Indianapolis.
Yeah.
The Colts, to me, if you forced me to watch a game between the Colts and the New Orleans Saints, I would simply confess to all the things you're accusing me of, just so I didn't have to watch. I don't want to.
We'll let our overlords know this.
Yeah, I don't like
the
those
future alien overlords.
Right. Seattle is at Arizona. Seattle is now up to a 3-point favorite. Kyler Murray's been pretty good since he got back. I mean, they had a pretty big win. They beat Philadelphia at Philadelphia. This is the last game. I guess Seattle has some remote chance to be in the playoffs. I don't know. But Seattle is a 3-point favorite. Division game. They're all division games this week, which is smart by the NFL. Seattle 3 at Arizona. Who you got?
I'm Arizona. I mean, they've been playing really well. They have some amazing wins, by the way. They're the one team that's beaten both Dallas and the Eagles.
Oh, I don't know that. Is that right? Okay.
I think so.
And they lost to the Giants of all teams. They lost to the Giants.
4 wins. Right, they only have 4 wins. 2 of those 4 wins, Dallas and Philadelphia.
Yeah.
This guy's quite remarkable. I'm riding with them simply. I know that Geno Smith apparently has like all sorts of financial incentives. Like I was reading one handicap for this that there's certain if he makes the playoffs, there's a huge financial bonus for him. You're not the only one. There's a whole bunch of incentive bonuses obviously on the line this week. But I don't know. Arizona feels like they're playing fast and loose and all of that, and they've had nothing to play for a couple weeks. So to say they won't play the same way.
Okay, we'll take Arizona.
The underdog. Yep.
Chicago is at Green Bay. Chicago is getting 3 at Green Bay. Green Bay has looked good lately. Chicago has looked good lately. This is the last audition for Justin Fields before they make a decision as to whether or not they trade him and pick a quarterback at number 1. Who you got?
Why is this just about Justin Fields and not about Jordan Love too?
Because Jordan Love's obviously won the job, right? I mean, he's been good.
I think so for sure.
I do.
I do too, I guess. I think though that winning this game and getting to the playoffs is, gets him his 4-year deal. Not winning this game probably gets him franchise tag.
Okay.
So there's probably some. Look, I'm just emotionally hedging this. I am petrified of this as a Packer fan. The fact that the Bears are what's sitting between the playoffs and the Packers. So I want to believe in love, so I'm taking Justin Fields. So give me the Bears.
You're taking the Bears.
This is complete emotional hedge.
Okay.
I want to lose this game. I want to be wrong.
Okay.
I'm just putting it out there. My son's gonna be mad at me. He always listens right after, always listens to the pod, and he critiques my performance with you, of course. He's gonna be really upset about this one, but it's emotional hedge.
Okay. I'll live with that.
And win. Yep.
All right.
Give me the Bears.
Atlanta is at New Orleans. Atlanta is getting 3. Atlanta's coach, Arthur Smith, is likely to be fired. This is a game, I don't know what the under is. I would take the under unless the under was like Iowa under, like 21 or something like that. I have no interest whatsoever in this game. Atlanta and New Orleans, I guess, have long shots to get in the playoffs if 27 other things happen. I don't really know. I mean, if Tampa Bay wins, they're not in the playoffs, so I don't know. What do you got?
Yeah, I got beef with the NFL scheduling with this specific game. So they have this game and the Tampa game both at 1 o'clock.
Oh.
The fact of the matter is, this game is only relevant if Tampa loses.
That's right.
So put Tampa at 4 o'clock.
Right.
So that you force these two teams, they know, well, we don't know what's going to happen with Tampa, but we know that game doesn't matter unless we win. So anyway, I think the NFL messed up.
That's interesting.
They messed up this game. Both of these games shouldn't be at 1, and it bugs me. I'm betting the Saints because I'm with you. I think Smith is fine.
Yeah.
And it just feels like that this is how it goes. Although he fires that guy Blank, your dancing buddy there, right? He fires a lot of people, doesn't he?
He does, but the good thing for Arthur Smith is he can walk right into a delivery job at FedEx. He can just say to his dad, I need some work, and get into a truck. It's pretty good for him.
There's no buyout with him, right?
No, of course not.
No, I'm not paying you for 30 years.
No, he might have more money than the owner, but it's close, because he isn't the owner of Home Depot, right?
Yeah, it's a close call, though, I think. I think, put it this way, I think Home Depot can't operate without FedEx.
That's probably
Not
true.
vice versa. Yeah.
For the second week in a row, the Washington team is a double-digit underdog at home. Last week against the 49ers, they did not cover. This week it's Dallas. Dallas needs to win. They don't need to win by 13 and a half. They are favored by 13. Who you like in this one? You won last week.
I hate this game because it's so many points.
Yeah.
This feels like Dallas, it's 21-3 at halftime, and they just say, fine, we'll win this game 21-10, right? And then it's backdoor cover. It's just too many points. Give me I got to think that our boy Ron Rivera in a swan song
It's his last game.
might actually, try to do something different. Maybe there's a fake punt here or there. Maybe there's crazy things like going for it and fourth down at midfield rather than punting. So I'm going to hold out hoping that they try crazy stuff. It's Dallas. They should want to just mess with them, right? That stuff shouldn't matter. Give me the Commanders.
Okay. And the game that really matters most is Buffalo at Miami. I will say I'm a little bit surprised that Buffalo is a 3-point favorite. I mean, maybe people look at Miami's performances recently and say they're really not good against a good team. And Buffalo does need to win this game to get in the playoffs. Well, they don't need to win it to get in the playoffs, but they can, if they lose it, not make the playoffs. If both Pittsburgh and Jacksonville win, Buffalo, one of the hottest teams in the league, them and the Ravens right now, they would be out. But with that all, Chuck, I am surprised they're a 3-point favorite against Miami.
That's a lot of points, and it's, especially on the road like that. And I get it. The Dolphins don't need
Right?
this win.
Right?
They're in the playoffs no matter what. But you would think the incentive to host a playoff game, right? I mean, if they don't win, they're not going to host a playoff.
That's right.
If they win, they host a playoff game. I should hope there's some incentive for the Dolphins not to. Nobody wants to face Buffalo in the playoffs. They feel like one of those teams that, like, if you can eliminate Buffalo now,
Yeah.
Eliminate Buffalo now. So I think there's every incentive in the world for the Dolphins to play, to treat this like the playoff game that it really is. So I'm going to take the home. You're a home dog in a playoff, in a basically a playoff game. Give me the Dolphins.
Okay, you pick 6 out of 7 home teams, just in case you're charting what you've done.
It's a rarity for me, isn't it?
Yes.
Don't I usually
Road.
Overly road? Which
Yes.
This could be a rough week.
Well, we'll see. You got to face your kid if that's true.
Yeah.
Embarrass the family on national radio or whatever this is called. Whatever. Nice to have you back.
All right. Well, here's hoping I didn't screw up the show.
You'll be fine. Thank you, Chuck.
All right. Bye now.
Chuck Todd, boys and girls. If we just gave you Chuck Todd, that'd be more than enough. But we give you a monkey.
Goes to the zoo. Reggie swinging from the bars.
We give you a monkey.
Let me see who Reggie likes after Chuck Todd Ma and the cars. In other words, throw your poo. Mike's fight too, yeah. He's throwing a quadruple DK salute. Oh, who taught him that? Johnny Walker. Blue.
That is the great Kyle Kettleson. And he sings about Reginald as if Frank Sinatra visits the National Zoo. He has a lead role in the great opera, probably the greatest opera of all time, Carmen, which opened at the Met in New York City earlier this week. He'll be performing several times until the end of January, so opera fans or anyone who wants to see a jingle writer in this more demanding day job should go to Lincoln Center and see the show. This is sent to us by Larry Schlesinger in Bethesda, and it is about Kyle Kettleson.
Yes, and love Kyle. Love both versions, but congratulations on Carmen.
No, come on.
It's just
Carmen.
that is tremendous.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what has Reginald got?
So I went down to the.
1-1-1 last week. He's 21-28-2.
He ain't gonna see Mount
I
Fire.
don't think he is.
It hasn't been his year, but faithfully, he's every week he's so eager to make these games, no matter what he's up to. And it was another crazy scene down at the National Zoo. He was on stage, busy rehearsing with his new band, Mr. Tony. It's a super group. They are called Monkey Business, and I think you might know some of the players. Pete Townsend.
Too much monkey business.
Too much monkey business, right? Pete Townsend, Bill Wyman, Ringo Starr, and of course Reginald on the Hammond organ. So
Fantastic.
yeah, so their first gig, I have it here, the Bottle and Cork at the end of the month, and then they begin a long residency at the Kaiser Keller in Hamburg.
There you go. There you go.
So hopefully you can see him in one of those places. Now, the first match we gave him was Pittsburgh on the road at Baltimore, giving 3.5, and this was a lovely little photograph, retro chubby of him having a sandwich at Primanti Brothers with Chuck Noll, Rod Scurry, and Rocky Blyer.
Taking Pittsburgh.
Tells me he likes Pittsburgh. Yes.
What else?
Next one we gave him was Texans giving 1.5 at the Colts. And this was a lovely little old film clip of him taking batting practice at the old Astrodome, hanging out with J.R. Richard, Raphael Landestoy, and Dickie Thorne.
Taking Houston.
Feels like he's going to take Houston in that one. And the last one was Dallas giving 13.
Yeah, it's a lot, big number.
It's a big number. I wasn't sure which way it would
But
go.
again, last week, San Francisco covered.
Yeah.
They covered.
Yes. So this was he showed me a little photograph of him tobogganing. Is that a correct?
Tobogganing, yes.
Tobogganing with Tony Dorsett, Babe Loffenberg, and Bob Lilly.
So he's going to take Dallas.
He's going to take Dallas. Has no respect whatsoever or regard for the Washington football team.
It's too bad. This could be the 1 week. You never know. This week's picks with Chuck Todd and Reginald the Monkey have been brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. We will come back with Jason Lockenfora. I am Tony Kornheiser.
You're listening to The Tony Kornheiser Show. The Tony Kornheiser Show.
This is a Policy Genius read. Start the new year knowing you found the right life insurance to protect your family with Policy Genius. Getting life insurance today means you'll have peace of mind for the rest of 2024 and beyond. So if something were to happen to you, your family can cover expenses while getting back on their feet. Luckily, Policy Genius helps you compare your options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to help talk you through it. Policy Genius's technology makes it easy to compare life insurance quotes from America's top insurers in just a few clicks to find your lowest price. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million worth of coverage. Do the math, people. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policy Genius has licensed, award-winning agents who can help you find the best fit for your needs. They work for you, not the insurance companies. That means they don't have an incentive to recommend one insurer over another, so you can trust their guidance. Save time and money. Give your family a financial safety net with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com.
You're listening to the Tony Kornheiser Show.
This is the NetSuite read. I don't recall NetSuite. Is this a new one?
New year. Yes.
New year, new read?
New year, new read.
All right. Here, I'm going to just read it. Your business was humming, but now you're falling behind. Teams buried in manual work, taking forever to close the books. Getting one source of truth is like pulling teeth. If this is you, you should know these three numbers. 37,025, 37,000. That's the number of businesses which have upgraded to NetSuite by Oracle. 25. NetSuite turns 25 this year. That's 25 years of helping businesses do more with less, close their books in days, not weeks, and drive down costs. 1, because your business is one of a kind, so you get a customized solution for all of your KPIs, which apparently means key performance indicators. You can tell I'm not a business guy. In one efficient system with one source of truth. Manage risk, get reliable forecasts, and improve margins. Everything you need to grow all in one place. So right now, download NetSuite's popular KPI checklist designed to give you consistently excellent performance. It's absolutely free at netsuite.com/Tony. That's netsuite.com/Tony to get your own KPI checklist. netsuite.com/Tony. I would do this because it's free, and I'd like to see what the KPI, it's not like the FBI or BPI, the KPI. I would do this.
You're listening to the Tony Kornheiser Show.
This is a group called Edgewater Avenue. This is sent to us by James Johnson. He says, Gary said we sounded like the Eagles. This is a link to our new EP. We would love it if you listened and told us what you thought. We're based in Wilmington, Delaware, and I work in roofing. Let me know if you need exterior work done at the beach. As a matter of fact, it's not exterior work as much as our roof gets damaged because we need trees cut down a little bit.
All right.
So if you know a tree guy, you can help me out with that, James. Again, this is Edgewater Avenue. This is called The Devil, The Midwest, and Me. Listen to it at the end of the show in its entirety, and it plays in Jason Lock and Fora. And let me just start with this. I seem to be hung up on this. Nobody else is, and by nobody else, Wilbon just looks at me like I'm crazy. But how do you feel about teams resting players when the team they are playing is still alive for the playoffs?
Oh, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, this is the ultimate attrition sport, and it's about maximizing your health, really, and that's paramount. And if you're able to do that, if you're able to condense the window that these billionaire owners want to keep expanding, if you're able to condense it to 16 games like the good old days, then I think you're a fool not to take advantage of it. I think you're especially a fool not to take advantage of it if you're the Browns or the Rams, one of these teams with really nothing to play for and who also won't be getting a regular bye. And they've taken the rest away, right? They've taken it from 2 teams to 1.
Yes.
They continue to, I think, again, for their own capitalistic reasons, make these division crowns, even in divisions that are complete garbage, like the AFC South and NFC South, worth more than they should be, because what is this all about? It's about pulling up the weakest. It's amazing. These people who otherwise would not believe in anything that's remotely socialist in its platform, do very much believe in social welfare for billionaires, because that's how the NFL's set up. So if that's what it is, and you finish with nothing to play for in 15 games, or 15 weeks, or 16 weeks, or whatever, then you know what? It's not about, this isn't about competitive balance. They're not playing games soon in Brazil and, eventually, whatever, China, I don't know, India. Like, they're not doing all that for competitive balance. Like, they're not playing on Thursday nights for competitive balance. They're not, they don't even care what surface you play on. Like, they don't even care how bad the fields are. So, no, F them. Whatever. Like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. I'm not worried about how my billionaires buddies might feel about it. I've got to protect my greatest assets, which there's not enough of in this league, and that's the players. So if you can limit their exposure to a game that really isn't going to affect you, then the ramifications of that, let the super wealthy people figure that out.
So I'm going to give a small pushback here, and I'm going to talk about the integrity of the game issue. I'm going to mention now that all sports, including the NFL, have betting partners, so they recognize how important betting is. And I'll tell you that in many of these cases, in the case of the Rams, they're not playing anybody who can qualify for the play. It doesn't matter. But in the case of the Buffalo Bills, they're going to play against Miami's best team, the best players, because that matters to both of the teams. But in the case of the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Steelers are not going to be getting Baltimore's best. But you still say that's okay, doesn't matter.
It's reflected in the line. I mean, again, I would say, well, that's for those who offer bets to figure it out, and trust me, they all have, because that line has,
That's
opened
right.
with the Steelers as a small favorite, and as it's become increasingly official, right? As the Ravens literally ruled 6 guys out yesterday, the money keeps going a certain way, and look, if they how about you get real officials? Like, we're talking about competitive balance and the integrity of the game. Like, they're sending, what does the league think of that Baltimore-Pittsburgh game? They're sending Brad Allen's crew there. I mean, that tells you, dude, the whole, it is what it is. Like, you think he would have got a game that really mattered? They know the game doesn't matter. They had to put those jamokes somewhere. They tried to stash them, now it's in its own window, so I don't know if they did it very smartly, because the game does still matter for Pittsburgh.
It does.
But like, that, what's that all about? Why are those guys still have work? Why? Because they don't care enough about it to have a bullpen of people who can come in and do at least as terrible of a job. Like, they can't get their story straight about what actually happened the other night. Like, so,
For those of you who don't know the intricacies of the NFL, the crew he's talking about was the crew that officiated the Detroit Lions and the Dallas Cowboys and denied a 2-point conversion that would win the game for the Lions and change everything in the NFC East, right?
Yeah, well, and they also were the Chiefs-Packers game that had, debacle after debacle
Right.
in it. Like, so, I mean, there's so much they could do. Like, why are we still spotting balls the same way that they did, when Curly Lambeau was a head coach? Like, what is that all about?
Well,
Really?
the league obviously agrees with you, because the league has never come out with a policy statement that says, we think this is a bad idea of resting players. They've never said that, right? Never, to my knowledge.
Well, I really don't know how they could. I mean, they set up the rules. They make the playoff tiebreakers. If I achieve everything I could possibly achieve, or I'm locked into a certain scenario by their rules, then I'm going to do what I can to maximize my chances of having the most bountiful roster I could possibly have available to me in the games that will decide the fate of my season. And, what that means for the other team, or, what the Ravens not playing everybody and perhaps losing to Pittsburgh, what that means for Indianapolis or
Buffalo.
Houston or some other wild card hopeful,
Yeah.
that's not my problem.
Okay, all right. You've got Ron Rivera and Arthur Smith gone. I think you wrote
Yeah.
about it in the Washington Post. We talked over the course of the year of Bill Belichick. And I believe, if I'm correct, you thought that this would be his last year
Oh, yeah.
at New England. That is a story that is much larger than any game this weekend. If in fact that's true, that's an enormous story, right?
I think so. It's interesting. I was talking to a friend of ours, Lucy Burge, who comes on and does gambling hits with us every week. She's based out of Boston. She's a big, New England fan. And, I had a big Ted Williams fetish as a kid, and I still have, probably do. And so I've read, kid bids Hub fans do, I don't know, probably 10 times in my life, and it's Updike chronicling Ted Williams' last game. and it's at Fenway Park, and it's against the Orioles, and there's nothing at stake, and there's like 10,500 people there, you know? So I'm kind of was wondering, like, even in New England, like, and now they're talking about this storm, like, are people going to show up to pay their last respects or whatever, you know, or to watch the hoodie try to, like, you know, destroy the Jets one last time, because he's done it 15 straight times and 12 straight in Foxborough. And Lucy was like, yeah, I think ultimately people are going to show. But she wasn't totally convinced, and I'm not totally convinced, and I think the story probably will get a little bit lost in the wash. Like, whatever you think of him and the way he treats people or the way he presents himself in the media, or whatever we think of Deflategate or Spygate, it's one of the most unique chapters in the history of this league, and it's certainly one that in the salary cap era, the way this league works now, and like I just said, competitive balance, come on, don't play a game on the moon if they can make money off it. Like, to think that anybody's ever going to be able to do what they did, to stand that far out above the crowd, year in, year out, year in, year out, like, no way. Nothing will ever come even remotely close. Like, it will look like even more of an outlier the further we get from it. I mean, just look at the most tenured coaches in the NFL right now. Like, I think we were looking at it yesterday. I think Sean McVay is like 6th.
Really?
You know, he's been there like 6 years.
So the ones that come to mind are Belichick and Tomlin and Carroll and Reed, but Reed switched teams, but still he's still
been in Kansas City 10 years.
Yeah.
But you know, he's not going to be there 10 years from now. I got news for you. He might not be there 5 years from now. You know, you've got this crazy Harbaugh-Tomlin thing, and that's another one. Like, those guys are meeting again this week.
Yeah.
You alluded to that. Like, you'll never see that. Those, like, the only coaches who faced each other more than those two in the history of the NFL are like Hallis and Lambeau.
Right.
Like, and you'll never see this again. Like, two guys lasting that long and being that successful in the same division, like, I don't know that it'll happen in the whole league 10 years from now, let alone these two to continue to face each other twice a year and then sometimes 3 times a year because they both make the playoffs. But yeah, but I don't know how lost in the wash the Belichick thing will get, but or what the response will ultimately be like in Foxborough for what looks like a god-awful, like that line opened, Tony, at I think 30 and a half.
Could be over under, yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's a football atrocity, but it does have a unique resonance, and I do think that'll be the last time he's ever on the sidelines for the New England Patriots, and we'll never, ever see anything like that again.
All right, I'll get you out of here on this. Do you think anything will come of the Russell Wilson benching? Or is that just going to be, shut up about it? It's a coach, he does what he wants.
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, that the NFLPA tends to not prevail or really even come particularly close on matters such as this. I would say it's not really a fair fight, so that would have something to do with it. No, I mean, I think, again, it'll come up at league meetings. People will be urged to have more of a bedside manner. You know, they'll be told to be careful in what they say and do, and certainly in what they say and do that can be, documented. But the reality is, these contracts are written certain ways, they're negotiated certain ways, and at various times throughout the evolution of a player's career there, sometimes the player, by nature of the contract, has the hammer, and sometimes the team does. But I also don't think this is by any means, like, maybe this is a little bit extreme, certainly, but the general sentiment, that was expressed to him is by no means something that I think is unique to the Denver Broncos and Russell Wilson. It's certainly unique in that it's a player of that magnitude and a contract of that magnitude, sure. But that's, it's a bit, first and foremost, this is a business.
It's a business, and he knew, and Russell Wilson knew it when he signed it. I mean, he's getting $39 million next year, no matter what happens. Let's not get crazy. All right, plug your radio show for us.
You can listen to us 2 to 6, talk about these matters occasionally, but certainly anything related to Baltimore sports on Inside Access on 105.7 The Fan in Baltimore from 2 to 6 weekdays. I may have already said that. Or you can listen to us anywhere on the Odyssey app.
Yeah, that was Odyssey NFL insider Jason Lockenfor. I'm reading for this, Jason.
Thanks,
Make sure
buddy.
to follow In the Huddle on the Odyssey app or subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Thank you, Jason. Talk next
Thank
week.
you. You're a natural, Tom. Don't ever
Yeah.
change. Love
I
you.
can read.
Thank you.
All right, Jason. We'll take a break. Jeff Mon, James Carville. When we return, we think, we hope, we pray, we don't know. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
Picture this nightmare scenario. You're hooked to your watch party.
Then you look upon the table bar. You see the same darn thing.
This is Paul Evans and Midnight Special.
Find no food upon the table bar.
James Carville has his own walk-up music.
There's no fork.
The only guest ever on the show with his own walk-up music.
But you better not
Makes
complain,
me
boss.
happy to play this. It does
You
makes
get
me
in
happy.
trouble.
So we have to, before we talk about this week's bets, your appearance last week generated a tremendous amount of mail because it seemed to everybody that maybe you were in your car and either your blinker was on or your windshield wipers were on. Do you recall that?
I don't, but it's possible. I'm so, discombobulated, it's disorganized, and anything is possible.
Okay, so we'll just leave it at that. That was a bad week, 1 in 5.
I can't attest, to one or the other.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, you took your lumps last week. That was a tough week.
I did.
Yeah.
It was not pretty. But
Yeah.
What happened is I usually this season I very seldom go 3 and 3. I go 1 and 5 or 5 and 1.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
The Pitt and the Ravens, right?
You got Baltimore and Pittsburgh. Baltimore resting Lamar Jackson.
And Pitt is a 3.5 point favorite.
3.5. That's
At
right.
Baltimore.
That's right.
And I will take Baltimore.
You will take Baltimore. Okay. Plus 3.5.
They
Okay.
got nothing to play for, but they're that much better than Pittsburgh. The Titans and the Jaguars. What do you see there?
I got 4.
Okay. Take the Titans.
Take the Titans. Even though Jacksonville, by winning, gets into the playoffs. You take the Titans.
I've seen this a million times. A team with nothing to gain, and another team with everything to gain, and a team with nothing to gain covers.
Yeah.
Don't ask me why. It's just, where are we?
Carolina.
Carolina is playing Tampa Bay.
If Tampa Bay wins, they win the division.
Right, so take the Panthers.
Take the Panthers.
Yeah.
So you're taking 3 underdogs in a row at this point. What else you got?
The Bears and the Packers.
The Bears are plus 3 at Green Bay.
Take the Bears.
The Bears have been playing very well lately. They have.
They sure have. I don't, it's be interesting to see what they do with their draft pick, isn't it?
Yeah, what I had said earlier in the show is that this is the last audition for Justin Fields. Because you can trade him and draft a quarterback at number 1 if you choose to, or you can keep him because you say to yourself, you know what, he's pretty good, and we'll see.
Yeah, I don't follow him that close about my team, but I'd be tempted to keep the guy.
Yeah, Wilbon wants to keep him. Wilbon wants to keep him. Yeah.
And the Broncos and the Raiders,
Yes, you have the Raiders minus 2.5. They're the favorites.
it makes no sense to take the Raiders.
So you will take the Broncos.
No, I'll take the Raiders.
Oh, you'll take the Raiders, even though it makes no sense to take the Raiders.
Right.
Okay.
And always, when something makes utterly no sense at all, that's the way you go.
Okay. All right.
It's the oldest established trap there is sports gambling. But we'll come back roaring back this week.
I would hope at least a 4-1. It would make me very happy for you.
Right.
All right.
Mary and I are going to the Pelicans Clippers tonight. This will be a hell of a game.
The Clippers are so much better than most of us thought they would be. We thought Harden would kill the team, and in fact,
Right.
they're since December something, they're like 12-2. They're really good, and New Orleans had a big win the other night. If Zion gets on the floor, they're a good team if he plays.
If Zion, I've seen him play a lot. if he decides he wants to score, I don't give a Rod or Rudy Gobert wasn't even there. He's supposed to be the best defensive player in the league. I mean, when that guy, if he decided, he'll ever decide that he wants to win it all, we can win it all.
No, he is that good. If his body holds out. Thank you, James. My best to Mary.
You bet.
I should have said this earlier, that this week's picks with James Carville and Jeff Ma are brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. That was a good appearance by James in that there was no strange noises in the background, and he only cursed once to our knowledge.
Just the once.
Only once. So that was, that was good. James is a sports fan. He really is a sports fan, And I think part of that is, going to LSU. I think people that go to LSU, which is such a major program in all the sports, I think people that go to LSU have to be sports fans. Or else why are you going to LSU?
I also think just professionally, it's something that keeps you away from your day job.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. Do we have Jeff?
We do indeed.
Jeff is back on the early schedule, which is terrible. He was so great last week. Although it was then 2-3. It was then 2-3, 48, 39, and 2. And now we have you waking up terribly early. I don't know if that'll have an effect on you or not. I wanted to ask you two things. First of all, I want to ask you about the betting lines when star players sit out, when Brock Purdy and Lamar Jackson, when they sit out games, how that affects the lines. And I wanted to ask you about the bowl games, if there was anything that came out of all those bowl games that you wanted to tell us about in terms of lines.
Yeah, I mean, the bowl games were kind of abysmal from a standpoint. I mean, one, everyone's really caught up on the bowl games, and at the end of the day, they serve two purposes. One, don't they give you some time off?
Yes, give us a week off, me and Wilbon. Yeah, we're having
great fun. So, I mean, that's really all we care about, right?
Yeah,
self-interest at some level for Tony. So, giving you some time off. But, the other thing is they're an exhibition. You're sitting at home with your family. What else do you have to do? So, I think people getting so caught up about fixing the bowl games and that kind of stuff. They're an exhibition. They're for entertainment. They're fine. But I think this bowl season really was interesting from a betting perspective because you had a lot of games where the line moved very much right before the game, and often those line moves were incorrect because people really had no idea who was playing, who was motivated.
That's right.
You saw it in a lot of games where what would happen is almost the wrong team was favored when the game closed. And so I think betting those games is going to be incredibly difficult going forward. And the ability for people to actually know who's playing, who's motivated, all that kind of stuff is becoming even harder and harder.
I agree with that. I would also say that the two bowls that stand out that were just abysmal were Florida State. They had no players, and Georgia wanted to make a statement. That game was over like literally 8 minutes into the game. And then the other one is Liberty against Oregon. Stop. All you people who think that these small schools with good records should play against a really good football school, you're wrong. That's what happens. They lose by 50 points, right?
Well, I mean, on the Georgia game, it actually goes counter to what I said because the Georgia game, everyone and their mother had bet on Georgia. The game started at Georgia, I think, was favored by 14 and closed with Georgia favored by over 20, 21, 22, 23 points. So everyone was betting on Georgia and made a fair amount of money on that. In terms of the Liberty game, I think inherently this is the problem with the structure of the NCAA. I mean, there should be two separate divisions for the Power 5.
Good teams and other teams. Yes.
Yeah, as long as the NCAA is still calling them the same, and they need to do this to support the sport, then I agree with you. I think the little guys should get a chance because I think ultimately, every team when they wake up in the morning on the first day of the season should believe that if they win all their games, they have a chance to win the national championship, right? Like they should have a chance to play for that. Until we change the structure of the sport, I just don't think it's fair. I mean, like that's what makes March Madness so fun. And yes, when we go to 8, if there is one non-Power 5 in there may be a blowout. That's okay. But for every maybe 10 blowouts, there's going to be one amazing upset. And that amazing upset is why we watch sports.
That's right. That's UMBC in Virginia. Yeah, I understand, but most of the time, you're going to get crushed. Especially in football. Football is not basketball. In basketball, two guys on your team can throw in some shots, and you can be close and have a chance. Football's different. All right, what do you got this week, Jeff?
All right, we're gonna. You were asking a little bit about this week. This week is like a strange week because ultimately this is a week where sometimes the market is not correct because there's
sitting
two
out.
different types of teams that go into Week 18. There's the teams that are still in it and need to win. There's teams that have already clinched and have incentive to rest players, and there's teams that are completely out of it, but don't really have any reason to rest players. So in many cases, the teams that need to win become overrated. Just because you need to win doesn't mean that you have an ability to play better and you're going to be motivated more. The teams certainly that are sitting players are always going to be teams to watch out for in terms of who's going to play and how motivated they really are. And then the interesting thing are the teams that sort of are out of it but don't want to rest players. And a lot of times you see those teams overperform because, like last year, the good example was Houston. They just kind of overperform because people think they're going to quit, but they're still professionals and they're still last game of the season. They still want to win once they start playing. I think you see that much more in the NFL than you do in the NBA, where these teams that are out of it don't really tank; they keep playing. So we're gonna start with New Orleans -3 versus Atlanta. This is a case where New Orleans is funny because, like we've talked about, that they're not very good on this podcast, but a lot of analytic systems have them better than we would think about them. And even last week was interesting, as I had Tampa and lost, and they blew out Tampa.
Yeah.
I think this is a case where the numbers actually say that New Orleans should be favored by a little bit more than 3, and you have a situation where New Orleans should be much more motivated than Atlanta. So I'll take fair value with a team that has a lot more to play for.
Okay, you'll take New Orleans.
Yeah, I'm going to take Chicago +3 over Green Bay. A game where Green Bay has everything to play for, Chicago theoretically doesn't. I think Chicago shows up here. Their defense has been incredible down the road, down the stretch. Obviously, that's been aided by who they've played. But I think this is a game where they may pull the upset against Green Bay.
Okay.
I'm going to take Tennessee +3.5 over Jacksonville. This was 5.5 earlier in the week. This is a clear, one team, needs to win, has everything incentive, the other team doesn't. And I think there's a little bit of value here. There's obviously more value at 5.5. The line should probably be Tennessee only favored by about 2 points. But I'll take Tennessee +3.5 still.
We can give you 4 because Carville's line was 4.
Yeah, Carville's got a few interesting ones.
I'll take whatever Carville gets.
Right, Carville. Okay. That's 4. Go ahead. What
I
else?
actually want to find Carville's sportsbook and just bet for that.
What else you got?
I got Washington +13 over Dallas. This one's really inflated because of the perception that Washington will quit or has quit, and Dallas obviously needs to win. The line should be probably closer to 9. So I like Washington +13. It's just a lot of points to give a team.
Okay.
In the NFL.
What else?
And then I'm going to take in the national championship game.
Yeah, I was hoping you bet.
Yeah, I'm going to take Michigan -4.5 over Washington. Washington is a team, and I'll probably be rooting for Washington just because it's just so much fun to watch Penix
Yes.
pass to those wide receivers. So much of the value of the team is his ability to complete those, long 20-yard passes, and just the amount of precision and accuracy that he has is incredible. But Rufus says that by his numbers, Michigan should be favored by 9.
Wow.
And if you think about the schematics in this game, meaning Michigan's going to be able to run probably against Washington and be able to get some pressure on Penix, you see a situation where this could get ugly. But again, Penix, he's a hard player to bet on until it's further notice. The guy is completing these passes, and he's got 3 NFL wide receivers, and it's just the whole deal. But if you go by the analytics and schematics, I think Michigan's the play.
That's interesting. Michigan certainly got to Milroe in the other game, and if you're right about running, then you shorten the clock of the game, And Washington doesn't like that at all. So maybe that would be interesting. What's on Bet the Process this week?
This week we have a guy by the name of Kevin Cole, who's a football analytics guy. We talked a little bit about something that's near and dear to Wilbon's heart, whether the Bears should re-sign Justin Fields or not.
Yeah.
And then we talked a lot about Week 18 betting ankle.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Jeff. Talk next week.
All right. Bye, Tony.
Jeff Ma, boys and girls. And I should read this. This week's picks with James Carville and Jeff Ma have been brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. We will come back with email and jingle. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
This is the Tony Kornheiser Show. The Tony Kornheiser Show.
This is the FanDuel read. The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays, find bets in the new Explore tab, make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the Parlay Hub. Go to that. The best way to find popular parlays and more. So visit FanDuel.com/TonyK. Make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Must be 21 plus and present in Arizona, Colorado, Connecticut, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, permitted parishes only, Massachusetts, Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, or Wyoming. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement in Indiana. Watching rates apply. Sports.
Here comes Tony's mailbag. Got your emails, faxes, and your notes. Here comes Tony's mailbag. Gonna read some for all of you folks. But don't send in faxes.
No faxes. You're right, Jason Fuse. No faxes. You want to do the Bethesda Bagel ad?
Yes, Bethesda Bagels. We love them. You will as well. Just go to BethesdaBagels.com for the location in the DC area nearest you. Then pop one in, my friend, and you will be thrilled.
That's going to do it for us today. Before we get to the mailbag, let me just say, and Michael is going to love this, if I searched this whole wide world, I'd never find me a girl who loved me the way that you do. Because you're shama-rama, ding-dong, baby. You put the ooh-mow-mow on. Back in my smile, child. So hit it. That's right. That's, come on, that's Animal House.
Otis Day in the Nights.
Otis, my man. Thanks to us. Guests today, Chuck Todd, Jason Lockenfora, James Carville, Jeff Ma. Full show. Thanks as well to today's sponsors. Remember, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, and Odyssey. To get the show through Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review. Excuse me for coughing. From Brian Deaton, Lexington, Kentucky. About James Carville the other day. Are we sure that Carville wasn't riding a horse?
That's right. Clop, 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 clop. Yeah, could have been it, I suppose.
Gillis Green, Vero Beach, Florida. Used to be the home of the Dodgers. The sound in Carville's car was his windshield wipers, not a blinker. That's why they were on so long. Come on, man. What are we even doing out? Greg Owens, Cumming, Georgia. Long time, first time. I was listening to your January 2nd show and heard you read the email from a listener regarding your cashmere sweater. Sue assures you that is not the moths eating a hole in your sweater, but their offspring who need nutrients from the natural fiber. Fascinating. Yet I did want to note that the not the moths comment threw me off. The offspring of a moth is still a moth, no? Yes.
Fairly good point.
From Willie in Leesburg, Virginia, formerly of West Lynn, Oregon, all the way across the country. The homogeneous nature of this show and its listeners never disappoints to impress. Last week, I got out my all-time favorite sweatshirt for a dinner party. It's a navy blue cashmere hoodie sweater that I purchased at Pebble Beach 2 years ago after having lunch there at Roy's. I wore it for one gorilla chip shot on our way out of the property and promised my son, age 10, that we would come back and play together for his 16th birthday. I cherish this article of clothing. I've never spent $350 on any piece of casual clothing before, let alone a hoodie. I almost had a mental breakdown in my closet when I put it on and I saw a small but noticeable hole, especially with the white undershirt I was wearing. I've been thinking of hanging it for display or buying some black undershirts, but then your caller who talked about the possibility of repair gave me new life. I found a tailor up here in Leesburg, Virginia, who says he can make the repair, even on cashmere, using thread from the color overlap. I'll let you know how it goes. I have to do that this coming week. I want to bring it in and get that done was Sue, right? Sue wrote the
yes,
email, right?
yes.
That's wonderful. From Mark Sandler, Edith's Pizza is owned by the bakery Breads Unlimited that you love in the Stroh-Snyder Shopping Center. You can't get bakery items there as far as I know, but they make a killer steak and cheese sandwich that's worth a visit.
I love that they have a sign out front that says this table is for customers of Edith's Pizza and the bakery only.
That's wonderful.
Yes, take out your territory.
By the way, speaking of Stroh-Snyder's, I opened up a bag of the regular flavored My Dad's chips last night and didn't stop till I went three-quarters through.
They found the perfect size. Yeah,
No.
yeah, they did.
Andy Pendergrass, Minden, Louisiana. Dear PTI guy from ESPN. Long time, second time.
Okay.
Even longer PTI. PTI started when I was a teenager, and I, like you, didn't think it would last long. But somehow you and Wilbon became a regular part of my weekdays and have been in my life on a regular basis as long as just about anyone. I enjoy hearing Michael Kornheiser on the podcast. I have two masculine children the same age as Michael's, and my boys, Cal and Freddie, seem to be into similar things as Bootsy and the Hammer. I'm emailing today about the big finish on PTI when you and Wilbon talked about Cheryl Miller. That was 2 days ago, or was it yesterday? 2 days ago.
2 days ago, yes.
I wanted to point out to you that in the highlight montage, there's a clip of Cheryl playing against Louisiana Tech. I don't see that.
Yeah.
I do not see video.
You just see teleprompter.
Yeah, I just see prompter, so I don't know what happened. You can clearly see a Louisiana Tech player with braided hair playing defense on Cheryl. That player is Kim Mulkey. Yeah, she went there. She won a national championship there. How do I know this? My aunt, Ann Pendergrass, played at La Tech with Kim for 4 years. They went to the Final Four all 4 years and won 2 national championships. Another fun fact about those La Tech teams is that Deborah Rodman played on them. The sister of, you guessed it, Dennis Rodman. I got to meet Coach Mulkey and Deborah at the 30th anniversary ring ceremony of La Tech winning the first ever NCAA Women's National Championship. Why a ring ceremony 30 years later? Because they didn't have rings made when they won it all in 1982. I have an attached photo from the USA Today of my aunt holding the trophy in the first ever one shining moment for women's college basketball. You can't share this story on the show, but Wilbon will love it. Yeah, because you can't. I mean, how long are you going to go?
Yeah.
On the team plane, when La Tech was flying out to Los Angeles to play against Cheryl Miller, the coaches gave a robust scouting report that pretty much was summed up with, "We've got to contain Cheryl Miller." After the coaches were finished and went back to their seats, Deborah Rodman said in a low voice, "Cheryl Miller," can't say what she said, but Cheryl Miller is, if not the greatest women's basketball player of all time. She's in the top 2 or 3. She's
Yes.
on everybody's list.
Yes.
She's on everybody's list. And she used to beat her brother, who you might know by the name of Reggie Miller. Okay? Yeah, that Reggie Miller.
He was okay.
Jordan Fable in Hamilton, Ontario, in Canada. I have no reason to mail you other than on Monday's show, you read an email from Bob Who from Hamilton, Ontario. I don't know Bob, and I've never met him, but for the first time in my 5 years of listening, I heard from a little also from my hometown of Hamilton. So I felt it only proper to ask you to tell Bob to eat it. Thanks for all these years. From Trent Zundel or Zundel in Morgantown, West Virginia. I would have bet Carville's double play winnings that the person who said that line was Jennifer Coolidge. Oh, this is the Microwave line.
Oh, right, no, Nigella Lawson.
Yeah. All these years, I took it for granted it was the treasured comedian saying the line in some Christopher Guest movie. I don't know that the Christopher Guest movies were made when microwaves were out. I don't know. Anyway, Mark Schwartz, again, not that Mark Schwartz. Please accept this as my second application to be the official mobblehead of the Tony Kornheiser Show. I think my first email may have been a bit long, so I'll use the code, keep this one brief. Attaches a picture of my daughter holding a bobblehead here in Mobblehead. And what other bobblehead could one have in Mobblehead other than Red Auerbach? So if my application is once again to be rejected, I will live, but please allow my daughter Aria to be the official toddler of Mobblehead. It will mean nothing to her and less to her mother, but I will know and will be able to brag to absolutely no one. Thank you. Please see my initial email for pics of our Mobblehead wedding and an invite to our favorite Mobblehead restaurant, Sea Salt. Yes, really. Yeah, lovely. Of course, she's a lovely girl. Oh, yeah, you can have that. You can be those things, and she can be those things. From Sam Angel, our old friend used to be at Drexel, right? Sam Angel, and now is in Silver Spring, Maryland.
That's right.
To piggyback off the note that Chuck, of Chuck and Roxy episode, all of them, which is funny, sent you on Tuesday's show, I wanted to write in to offer a huge thank you to Roxy, who may or may not actually hear this. Last week, we took our 5-year-old daughter to New York for her first visit to the city, highlighted by a performance of the Radio City Christmas Spectacular, which you have to see.
I've never seen that. Is that?
Oh, it's wonderful.
It's really great.
You have to see it. It was one of multiple shows that day for Roxy, but she took the time to meet us after the show and make Chelsea feel like the star. She answered questions about how many kicks they do each show, over 200 in each performance, and what the hardest production number was, the Tin Soldier's Fall, and gave Chelsea a set of Tin Soldier cheeks to wear around town. Strangely, Carbone does not seem to offer a kids menu, so we opted for John's on Bleecker Street instead, which is one of the great pizza joints of all time, right? John's. It's one of the great of all time.
Do they serve New York style pizza there?
No, they serve pizza there. But nothing could have made us feel like A-listers. Made us feel more like A-listers than Roxy's warm welcome and attention to an excited kid. So I had to give her a big thank you on the big show. Isn't that nice? That's sweet. Mike Mackler here, Chuck and Roxy, episode 110. I'm a big fan of your pronunciation of the Mac. I was wondering if I changed the spelling of my last name to Mackler with a pronunciation change. Also, my biggest regret is that I've never used "get some action" as a pickup line. Mike Mackler, Wilmington, Delaware. From John Pearson in Milwaukee. One of the bonuses of this show is the sheer joy I get when Pat 40 is on, along with the delicious sarcasm about the nature of people ruining college football. When he gives updates on his amazing daughter Brooke's swimming career all the way to the Olympics. Now, when you ask him about his holiday, and he offhandedly mentions that he and the family went to visit Brooke, where she is serving in the Peace Corps, it was just wonderful. I was wondering if Pat has some free time, could he please take over raising my 14-year-old daughter from here on out? I mean, mine is delightful, but obviously he's better at this than I am. Yeah, she's an Olympian and she's in the Peace Corps.
Yeah.
And she graduated from Stanford. Hello. Stanford.
It's fairly impressive.
What's this? Oh, from Michael Sarby. I've lived in many places related to the show. Madison, Wisconsin, where many of your emailers are from. Ithaca, New York, where much of your wealth went. And yes, I even lived a year in Marblehead, Massachusetts. I now live in lovely Leisure World, a 55 and older community in Silver Spring. In the lobby of my building, Fairways South, and the digital community board plays a loop of 2 songs. The first one is fine, actually. Don't Worry, Be Happy by Barbie McFerrin. It's not the song so much as the fact that it is echoing through a lobby of a building where the median age of the residents is 92. Don't worry, indeed. The second one brings me to the subject of this email, The Candyman by Sammy Davis Jr. Simply a terrible song, and one that makes me getting my mail a torture session. In 1972, Sammy was quoted as saying, "It's horrible. It's Timmy Two Shoes. It's white bread. Cutums. There's no romance. Blech. This record is going straight into the toilet, not just around the rim, but into the bowl, and it may just pull my whole career down with it." It went on to be nominated for a Grammy, further solidifying my opinion that the Grammys are a joke. Just another example of a great artist coming out with a terrible song, like My Ding-a-Ling. It's terrible by Chuck Berry, and Let 'Em In by Sir Paul McCartney, numbers 2 and 3 on my hate list. Just a side note, SiriusXM has a station devoted to this genre called Yacht Rock. Yeah, I've heard that, Yacht Rock. I swear every third song they play has been mentioned on your podcast. The show stinks, Michael Sarby. If you're out on your bike tonight, everyone, as always, to wear white.
Feels so good to be back here at the Death Delay Club. We like to do for you now a tune entitled Shamalama Ding Dong. So hit it!
Alright, so I think we might land in Paris, but we will fly around Paris for a little bit, and while we do that, we will listen to the Friday, January 5th, 2024 show of the Sharp and Handley radio broadcast from Omaha, Nebraska. So we will listen to that now as we fly around Paris before we land.
That's right. Good morning. Mornings with Sharp and Handley, 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com. Filling in for Gary is John Schreiner.
Hello.
Hold on. I was just here.
I was just here. I feel like I probably shouldn't have gone home.
Here at night, back at night. So you bookended our local coverage from last night to this morning. Good for you. And fresh off of Washington.
I'm a guy who just can't bring himself to say no. That's my problem.
Hey, I gave you an out.
You did.
Once you told me you were doing Jimmy's show last night too.
And
Jimmy, don't worry about it.
Jimmy did the same thing. He's like, I said, yeah, I just got off a plane and I've done zero prep for your show, but I think I can hang for 2 hours. Yeah. And he said, are you sure? You don't have to. You can say no. No, I can't.
Never even up, baby. So you were out in Spokane here in the Washington State area. Was there a vibe? Was there a national championship completely different part of Washington.
Yeah, I'm not sure that the people in that part of Washington are...
They're not purple, they lose. They're not purple and gold.
Yeah, I don't think they're Washington fans. They're probably more likely to be Washington State fans in that part of the state. Pullman's what, an hour and a half south of Spokane.
Is anybody really a Washington State fan? Oh yeah,
Like even people in Pullman. Well, the flag makes up an appearance on every edition of Game Day.
That is true.
So
they have a brand. It's a recognizable brand.
It's Keith Jackson's alma mater.
Would that be the most famous probably in Washington State, at least in the sports book?
They have a decent journalism school. I remember this because I used to get info on them about 20-something years ago, thinking, oh, that might be a decent place to go to college. Obviously, I was obsessed with getting as far away from home as possible. And when I saw,
That'll do it.
That one's a little further to get away, Seattle will be a little easier to get to. Either way, I ended up at either one of those schools, but that was kind of...
You went really far away up north to Lawrence.
That was still far away.
Yeah. Well, everything from Texas.
That was the Arctic for me. And now I live in Omaha, so it was
Just making your way further up north. Get up to Bismarck.
I almost made that mistake.
I'd never been to Spokane before, so it was a cool trip for me personally. Walked around the downtown area. There's a small waterfall running right through the middle of the city, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I walked down there, did the little river walk, and hung out with the Washingtonians. It's
Good people? Salt of the ocean?
yeah, no, they're not that. They're mountain folk.
Oh. So they don't say a lot.
No, they don't say a lot.
Keep to themselves.
Yeah. But it is exactly what you picture in every horror movie that's set in the Northwest. It's like misty and mysterious and dark forest. This is kind of cool. I liked it. It had a good vibe.
Well, I'm glad you made it back without...
I didn't get attacked by zombies.
Yeah. That would have been unfortunate. Obviously, you would have been here. But we are happy you are all with us here on a Friday. We set you up for the weekend. We've got a national championship to talk about for Monday. Last time you and I talked, there's something that I want to get your thoughts on that you may not even remember that you brought up, because it's been a while since you and I have talked regarding Nebraska football that we'll get into. It's a big Nebraska recruiting weekend, too, especially in an area of need. Will Nebraska get a running back that can sort of soften the blow of losing Kawan Lacey in the recruiting class of 2024? Some big visitors happening this weekend from the transfer portal. We're going to talk to Mike Schaefer of Husker 24/7 Sports at 9 o'clock. We'll get his thoughts on everything coming up, but also the impact of trying to finalize this class on what is going to be a very, very, very important 2024 for the Nebraska football team. Speaking of important, you've got some big games for both Creighton. Creighton coming back home, taking on Providence, and Providence got a major, major blow yesterday in losing one of their key players. Also, Nebraska will be on the road at the Kohl Center coming off of a solid showing against Indiana. And the question remains, do you believe? Are you ready to get all in on Nebraska hoops? We've got that to get into. Of course, we'll get some early thoughts on Washington and Michigan on Monday. We'll be talking about the national championship game with Bill Bender of Sporting News at 8 o'clock. And then our good friend Matt Burzel stops by at 9:20. And as always, our lineup is powered by the Roofery's and John Higgins Weather Guard. So I want to start with this, John, because you brought this up, and since it's become a reality, I didn't even text you this question, but I remember you bringing it up. So the last time you were on with me, it was a Thursday. We talked to our good friend Steve Sipple. You had asked him a hypothetical. Sure. We were talking about the quarterback situation for Nebraska going forward. And at that time, we knew of Chuba, Heinrich Harper, and Danny Kaelin. Right. And we talked about, obviously, Nebraska looking for a quarterback in the transfer portal. I believe you asked the question of, Danny Kaelin, is it kind of understood that he's not a sort of a true freshman, ready-made guy to come right in and contend for the job? And Sip, and I think everybody has kind of agreed, that it's going to take another year. You asked the hypothetical, would that have been different with Dylan Raiola? I remember asking the question. Yeah. And Sip said, well, yeah, obviously, but, that's No, that's not the case. Didn't happen, so it is what it is.
So I get what you're saying, that I spoke it
Yes.
into reality.
But I never asked you, did you know something that none of us knew at the time? Because it was the following week.
You should just say yes to be mysterious.
I know. It was the following week when all of this broke. And I immediately thought of, in fact, I want to say it was the following Sunday is when all of this started to happen. And then it was that Monday afternoon that we were learning, not only is Nebraska hosting Kyle McCord, because remember we were talking about Kyle McCord.
We were.
Not only is Nebraska hosting Kyle McCord, but Dylan Raiola is back in the mix, and he's coming to visit this weekend, and it's now everybody's got crystal balling Dylan Raiola.
Yeah.
And I immediately thought back to our conversation, because when you asked the question, I did find it to be peculiar. I'm like, oh, interesting. But I got what you were doing. You were just saying, Danny Kaelin maybe needs another year.
Yeah, we were talking
but
about...
if they had gotten Dylan Raiola, would Nebraska necessarily be as hell-bent on the transfer quarterback right now?
Right. I was trying to get Sip to ask, does he think it was a systemic thing where Nebraska doesn't want to start a true freshman quarterback, or it's just the true freshman quarterback that they would have isn't the one that they would like to start? That was the genesis of the question. And I wish I could sit here and tell you, oh yeah, I totally knew that Dylan Raiola. I had a sneaking suspicion that it wasn't completely over, because I always thought he was a guy who wanted to start year one, and I didn't think that he was going to start year one at Georgia. It's a school that...
Well, especially with Carson Beck coming back.
Sure.
And it wasn't official then, but all signs pointed to Carson Beck coming back.
Right. So there was sort of an unspoken thing that I was thinking about, that maybe it wasn't over. I didn't actually believe he would end up committing to Nebraska. That never entered my mind once he committed to Georgia. I don't think I ever thought he would end up flipping. But, I don't know, in some way, I guess I didn't think it was completely done.
I totally gave you an opportunity to be like, yeah, I was hearing some things. I was talking to the Dahmer, and he and I text a lot. And
well, Matt Rule's kids and my kid do go to the same school, so
do they?
They do.
See, that you could use that one too. Start to get information down at the elementary level.
I heard it at a PTA meeting.
It's where some of the best insight comes from there. No, but I got to give you credit for at least entertaining that. If anything else, yes, you spoke it into existence. Because
you're welcome.
Less than a week, it became a reality. How about that? I mean, less than a week, it became I guess it was the high percentage that it became a reality. It didn't become a reality until a little after a week. But
you know the saying that the sun shines on a dog's posterior.
Yep. Anyone can win the lottery.
Yep.
So, because again, we haven't had a chance to talk. Haven't been back since. So, I was Team McCord. You were not, and that whether you fully believe Matt Rule that they didn't offer him, or there was an offer and Kyle McCord didn't want to deal with all of a sudden the Dylan Raiola fanfare that was inevitable. Whatever people believe, now Nebraska has their true freshman quarterback and the body of now two actual freshmen. They've got Danny Kaelin, who was always there, and thought maybe you're going to lose him for a little bit, but he keeps his commitment. And then you've got a guy that could potentially transform this program, or at least the position that we've seen in a long time in Dylan Raiola. So, as of now, and I think it's going to be a tough sell. I don't know if there is anything in the works that you would see any movement, even from kind of a second or middle tier type quarterback that has experience that would be making their way over to Nebraska. All signs pointing to Dylan Raiola being your guy in year one. Where are you now with the current quarterback situation, knowing that you lost Joe Purdy to the transfer portal? So your only experienced guy is Heinrich Haarberg, and then your other two scholarship quarterbacks are Dylan Raiola and Danny Kaelin. Are you excited? Are you reluctant? Are you just more in wait and see, cautiously optimistic? Whatever the feeling might be, if I say, now it looks like Dylan Raiola, a true freshman, is going to be the starting quarterback against UTEP in 2024?
So, with a true freshman quarterback, I don't care who it is, it's always a roll of the dice. The true freshman could come in and be otherworldly good, or the true freshman could come in and honestly be a freshman, right? There's limitless possibilities between the two poles, right? He could be a savior, he could be a bust. You don't know. So, I mean, that uncertainty is exciting because of the potential. The ceiling is very high.
Yeah.
I would have liked, and look, we talked on Jimmy's show last night to Brian Munson, and we asked him specifically about this. Is Nebraska going to get a veteran QB in the portal? And I was kind of leaning toward, I think they will, but I think Brian convinced me otherwise. He said essentially, there's no room for it, and you're not going to attract a veteran guy to come in and sit behind the freshman knowing that that's the case. Like, he's coming into a situation where he's a backup immediately, and he's a veteran guy who just wants to play, one more year of football. I think it would be extremely beneficial for like a fifth-year guy to be in that room, to be a mentor, maybe a guy who wants to be a coach, who's potentially looking at being a GA when he gets done with school. That kind of a player would be hugely beneficial to a true freshman quarterback, who's a day one starter. But I'm kind of on the page now that I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think there's a quarterback out there with that mentality who's going to come in and sit behind the five-star true freshman. I don't know that you're going to find that. So it's kind of, you have what you have now, and it's going to be Dylan Raiola, Danny Kaelin, and Heinrich Harburg.
Yeah.
Those are the three guys that you're going to have to choose from, essentially.
Well, and the reason I bring this up, and I would agree with a lot of that. I think everybody is probably in a similar mindset of the idea of starting a true freshman. It could be very exciting. I mean, we remember the last time a true freshman started with Adrian Martinez. There was a lot of good, there was some bad. But at the end of the season, I think everybody was pretty optimistic about what the kid showed. And thinking and that was one of those years where you could really chalk up a lot of those mistakes as freshman mistakes, but also in a brand new system, in a first-year head coach in that system. I mean, there were a lot of things that it was easy to sort of excuse. What Nebraska failed to do, we've talked about this on the show many, many times, they failed to support Adrian Martinez. They failed to surround him with talent. They failed to invest in the offensive line the way that they should have. They failed to invest in the skill position players the way that they should have. You had a year of Stanley Morgan and J.D. Spielman together, and Devine Ezigbo. So you could say maybe arguably his true freshman year was when he had the most skill, talent around him collectively.
Do you remember the conversation around him after his freshman season was that there's no way this guy's staying 4 years?
Yeah. I thought a lot of us looked at that trajectory of as
it
could be a 3-year
junior draft entry and a potential first-round pick.
Yep. Yeah, totally. And so you'd love to have that type of freshman year from Dylan Raiola where we're saying, okay, dang, this kid is, the juice is worth the squeeze.
We got to get a plan for the future because he's not going to be here long.
Right. And again, I think we're in that same position without even watching him play a game. I think people are projecting that's what Dylan Raiola could be. So those expectations are there. They're going to be there every week, every month leading up to fall camp that Dylan Raiola is here. But why this weekend is so important, the idea of a true freshman, whether it's a 5-star talent like Dylan Raiola or a solid 3-star guy like Danny Kaelin is, okay, well, what do you got around the guy? Now, there's a lot of people that I think that would have major pushback on the offensive line. But it's a veteran group. It's an offensive line that I think collectively, again, as a whole, got better. Now, there are certain individuals that you saw improve. I think we could look at Bryce Benhart as a bright spot of last season. You could look at Ben Scott as a guy that was just pretty solid at the center position. I don't want to say Teddy Prohaska when he ended up playing was great every game, but I think the fact that he did get in and finish the season, and this is another big thing that we've talked about, he's going to actually go into an offseason where he's not rehabbing.
Yeah.
Which is huge. Does Turner Corcoran move inside? If he does that bring out better football out of him?
Well, something has to.
Yeah. But, and you know, you got Justin Evans-Jenkins, exciting young player there that showed a lot of promise even last year. There's I think, excitement around what that offensive line could be.
I wouldn't say excitement. I think there's cautious optimism. I don't know if anyone's excited about Nebraska's offensive line. I'm certainly not. I wouldn't classify myself as excited.
Well, I think it's a better situation than what...
I would say I'm not terrified as I have been in years past.
Well, and that's why I say you're throwing a true freshman behind an offensive line. You've got some guys that you obviously trust. There's other guys you're keeping your eye on to see if they can make that jump. Again, Teddy's going to be a big one to watch this year. But it's an experienced group. It's a group that's played together a lot, which I really like. And now you kind of focus on, okay, what are you doing at the skill position? Because, and I think we could also throw in tight end there. You know, Thomas Fidone. He played a lot of games last year. He was involved, and I say involved because he wasn't as big of an impact, and I'm not saying it's his fault.
Nebraska's passing game was barely an impact.
It was awful. Yes, exactly. So you look at the tight end position, feel pretty decent about that, especially with the young players you're continuing to bring in as well. But also look at the wide receivers. You know, that's a big intrigue. And what Nebraska is doing in the transfer portal right now, whether you're talking about Naor from Texas, or you're looking at who Nebraska was talking with and who will be making a visit this weekend, you've got the big-bodied wideout from Wisconsin, from Wake Forest, Jamal Banks. So
Dowdell, the running back.
Dante Dowdell, which if you get, I don't know if Nebraska gets both receivers. It sounds very promising that they get Dowdell. And we'll get into his story too. But I start to look at, okay, what you have in the backfield if you add that body in Dowdell. You got a blend of experience and a guy that, in Dante Dowdell, that you think can be an RB1 type guy. We've been going over this, and I don't know where you stand on it. Is Nebraska looking for a wide receiver one in the transfer portal, or are they just looking to solidify depth? And this is where I would say, okay, rule out, just for now, because we don't know, Isaiah Garcia-Castaneda. Which, if he's your number one to begin with, don't love that, but he does have some experience. At times, he's shown the ability to make some plays, but his road to get another year is still a little bit cloudy right now. So if you're looking at your potential number ones, they reside in your sophomore class. Your Jalen Lloyd, your Malachi Coleman, and your Jaden Doss. And then you can throw in Demetrius Bell, who redshirted. Do you look at any of the guys that played last year and say, yep, that's your number one wide receiver? Or do you get into a Jamal Banks, which I think, if you're asking me, and I'll tell you what I think of it, okay, and then you can give me your thoughts. I think Jamal Banks fits more the wide receiver number one role.
6'4", 205.
205. He's been on the field too. That's the big thing. The Isaiah Naor one is interesting from the fact that I think there's another decent size, but he's played a lot of football, but he's also missed a lot of football. He missed an entire season due to injury. Only had one catch for 14 yards last year for Texas. So there hasn't been a lot of consistent production or consistent, I guess, even availability.
Yeah.
Isaiah Naor, to me, feels like that's a guy, sure, if he turns into be a highly productive, like he turns into be sort of a lead target, great, but you're not necessarily expecting that out of him if you get him out of the transfer portal. I think Jamal Banks, you're hoping and kind of looking at Jamal Banks as more of that type of guy. while you allow your young sophomores, or soon-to-be sophomores, to get another year in development. And by the time you get into the following season of 25, that group is going to be a pretty formidable group. That's kind of where I am with the wide receivers. But it's very important because, again, this all comes back to what are you surrounding Dylan Raiola with?
I think, so just looking at the history of Nebraska, heading into last season, Nebraska had a pretty good run of transfer wide receivers who'd had some success. You had Samori Toure, who came from the FCS ranks, had a good season. He's playing in the NFL, Green Bay. I mean, he's contributing to the Packers.
Yep.
Trey Palmer was obviously,
He's a dude.
he was incredible,
Yep.
and is contributing in a very stacked wide receiver room in Tampa. And then this year it was Billy Kemp. And I think Billy Kemp was a victim of the circumstance that Nebraska didn't have a settled situation at quarterback by any means. The Jeff Sims project went off the rails early, and then the passing game was pretty much an afterthought. So I don't know if you can call Billy Kemp a bust. I think it's more like the Nebraska passing game was a bust, right? So Nebraska adding transfer wide receivers, while you may have a sour taste in your mouth over Billy Kemp, not entirely his fault. I don't think it speaks to the kind of player he could have been with competent quarterback.
Well, and I don't think he was built to be.
He shouldn't have ever
A
been a
lead
number
receiver,
one.
too, yeah.
He's a slot receiver.
Yeah, exactly.
So I agree with you. I think Nebraska's looking for a veteran wide receiver one. Not sold on Nayor at all. I know Texas was like, they said all the right things, and we're upset to lose him and that. But the numbers that Banks has put up over the last two seasons are enticing. I think he's over 100 catches, like 13 touchdowns at Wake Forest. One of those he played with a guy who's hoping to be in the NFL, who transferred to Notre Dame, which Sam Hartman. That was like an all-time offense for Wake Forest his last year at Wake. The thing that I'm looking at is the two sophomores. I think Jalen Lloyd and Malachi Coleman, both of them showed you flashes that they could be number one caliber wide receivers.
Jalen Lloyd is
track speed, man.
Yes, I think he has got, when all is said and done, if it continues, again, this development needs to continue. When all is said and done, has a chance to be an elite playmaker.
Well, and Malachi's got the body that could put him in that conversation
100%,
as well.
100%.
And so what you need is a guy like a Jamal Banks to come in and, again, not only contribute on the field, but be that mentor and help teach those guys how to play the game the right way.
Having a better quarterback that can sling the football. This is where I think of just even basic throws that Dylan and even Danny Kalen can complete, but Dylan Raiola especially. What that could do for that young group that we just mentioned, what that could do for those guys. And don't forget, you've got like Ja'Cory Barney, you got some interesting guys coming in too in this freshman class as well, where there's going to be, I think, some opportunity for guys to get at least in the mix. But this is the thing, like I'm watching Heinrich Haarberg throw the football, and we saw it all the time. I mean, the ball is elevating on receivers. He's
They're hung out to dry.
Yeah, it's not on a line, and there's we talked about it a lot, especially when he first started. The arm slot, and I know a lot of people. We had people questioning, can that be fixed? And I don't know if you're at that stage right now where you can completely break down the mechanics and then build them back up to where he's going to be at the level that you would need him to be for this offense to take a major step forward. So, look, I think there's so much good about Heinrich Haarberg, just the way that he presents himself. But as an actual quarterback to make this offense better in what they want to do and what they want to get out of the wide receiving group, I think asking him to have another year of development under whoever the quarterback coach is, which is going to be another conversation, is still asking a lot. And to me, there was just a lot of wasted time with Heinrich Harburg when he was first recruited, when he was first on campus too. And I know he spoke very highly of Mario Verduzco as far as Verduzco kind of challenging the quarterback room and more from a cerebral approach. But mechanically, not much changed. I don't think there was a lot of improvements there. And then what we learned is Heinrich Harburg wasn't even invited into the quarterback meetings.
Yeah.
And so he wasn't someone that was a high priority as far as development goes. And so that's why I think people think of
laughed when his name was
did. So did
in
Nicky
the press
Joseph.
conference.
And so for another year in this system, to expect him to all of a sudden be this much more polished and more productive passer, which is what Nebraska needs to have their quarterback, I still think is asking a lot. The dude can get you some plays with his legs, tremendous athlete, good dude, tough guy, people follow him, but it's time that standard is raised now for Nebraska football. Here's that quarterback position.
Here's another point I'll make about the wide receivers. I want to preface this by saying I like Alex Bullock. I like the kid a lot. I actually wrote a story about him when he was in high school. He's an incredible kid and a good football player. With all that said, he's a walk-on. At Nebraska, if you're hoping to return to the glory days, you cannot have a sophomore walk-on as a starting wide receiver. Agreed. You can have a senior walk-on who's been in the program, has put in the work, and he's there, and he's ready to go now.
I agree.
You can't have a sophomore walk-on as a starting wide receiver. That's not how this is supposed to go. That's not Alex Bullock's fault. That's the program's fault. That he is a starter as a walk-on as a sophomore.
Yep.
That means something has gone off the rails.
Again, this weekend, I know some people will sort of dismiss the importance of it, and there's other visitors that are making their way into Lincoln on the defensive side too, that we'll get into. But offensively, what you're doing to try to support the quarterback position, because in all likelihood, it is going to be a true freshman in the person of Dylan Raiola, which is exciting, but also, Gary's brought this up, and I don't think there's any other way to look at it. And that is, Dylan Raiola, as long as the 10 people around him are better, the 10 people around him are better, he's going to have a good year. And I think that's the goal. This goes all the way back to when we think of what went wrong with Adrian Martinez and bringing him along from his freshman year to the time that he left. Is what did you do to support the kid? What did you do to protect him? What did you do in the way of playmakers, where he didn't have to run the ball 25 times?
Yeah.
What did you do to allow him to grow and not put the weight of the world on him? You cannot do that again. I think this coaching staff is very much aware of that.
That's 2 years, his primary running back was a wide receiver.
Yes. Who ended up leaving because he didn't want to, which I think we can all understand. So yes, we'll get more into this conversation. Also, it's a big college basketball weekend for both Creighton and Nebraska. We'll talk about that. Coming up at 8 o'clock again, Bill Bender of the Sporting News will get his thoughts on the national championship game. Nebraska taking on Wisconsin tomorrow night. Interesting game at the Kohl Center. We'll dive into that. If you want to weigh on any of the conversation at all, 951-1620. That is the number 2. The 42-degree hotline at the Source by your mom's house. Also, you can always join in on the conversation. First of all, on the stream. Good morning, Rick. Rick's fired up for the weekend of recruiting as well. But you can also join us on the J-Tech Construction Zone Twitter feed. I am at Nick Hanley 1620.
At John Schreiner, JONSCHRINER.
And also, you can hit us up on the Equitable Bank inbox, email the show. I am Handley at 1620thezone.com. You can also hit up Jimmy. It is Jimmy with a Y, or the correct pronunciation, as we like to say, the correct spelling of it, Jimmy with a Y at 1620thezone.com. When we come back, though, I want to get into some of the college basketball happenings in a major, major blow, but also for Creighton, a silver lining for them being able to parlay a win. We'll call it, it was a win against Georgetown. but being able to try to put that into motion in what could be a very big momentum-building game this weekend in Omaha. We will do that next. Glad you're with us here on a Friday. It's Mornings with Sharp and Hanley. John Schreiner filling in. Jimmy with us as well here on 1620 The Zone.
I'm at the football game.
So this morning, this morning I'm surrounded with what I'd like to say is realists on the show. Because I've been a real baby. I mean, and Jimmy's always the self-proclaimed downer. He always just says, "I've never said I'm the downer. I'm just not going to BS you." No, there's been times though you're like, "I'm just a downer today." He didn't say it today. I'm just saying you've said that before. Like I'm the resident curmudgeon. Okay, there you go. All right, curmudgeon. Get it right. Yeah. So I resemble that remark. Yeah, and I think John, I always kind of consider myself a little bit more of the optimist. You know, I'm always like, hey, I used to be like you, and then life kind of took care of that for me. So. Which is funny because I'm the oldest guy in the room right now too. You know, I mean, who knew? But as we get optimistic until about kindergarten. Then you are wise to the ways of the world. I'm a conditional optimist. I think there are things that you'll buy into. And the reason I bring this up is because that is, and Jimmy, I don't think I really got your true feeling of this yesterday during our conversation of Nebraska ball's victory over Indiana, 12-2. The best start since you got to go all the way back to the 90s now. They've got a very interesting spot. Since I was in second grade. Second grade, okay. That was a lot older than I thought. If you were believing, if you are ready to let yourself believe that this Nebraska basketball team, if they can find their way into the NCAA tournament based on what you have seen and what they have in front of them, because the game against Wisconsin this weekend is going to be a tricky one. Wisconsin's playing very good basketball. They're a top 25 team. Kohl Center is always a tough place to play. Then you got... They're still a Big Ten team. They can't be that good. You're not wrong. I mean, the game, I think without question, that obviously is on everyone's mind, is the one that when Nebraska returns to Lincoln against Purdue, given how good they are, number one team, big opportunity. So I'll ask both of you guys, where is your confidence level in Nebraska hoops right now of making the NCAA tournament? I would say it's a 50-50 proposition. Because remember last time we talked, day after the Minnesota game. Yep. Remember how bad that was? Yeah, I was like thinking the whole thing was fraudulent at that point. Mm-hmm. But since then, I mean, the win over Kansas State is kind of what changed my mind a little bit. It's a good one. Kind of erases the Minnesota 20 minutes. It's not so much that Quincy Morgan. It's not so much like what Kansas State is this year, but they beat a program that has some history of being a good basketball program that plays the game competently. Yeah. Right? So I think that game sort of changed my opinion a little bit. The Michigan State game, it was a good win, but it didn't really change my mind. See, it is aged very well because Michigan State, the following Saturday, started to figure it out. Looking up on Baylor, I was like, damn, okay. Because against Nebraska, they looked dysfunctional. But then in Detroit, playing a good Baylor team, I mean, it wasn't even close. They destroyed Baylor. So those two wins over Kansas State, who's 8-3 now, and over Michigan State, who has a couple of nice wins. They're still only 4-5, however. Those are the only teams that, you could say are good wins. Indiana's not very good. Yeah, see, and Jimmy, you watched the Kansas-Indiana game, right? When they played it. I did not. Okay. I'm sure it was a riveting affair. It was actually a really good game. Kansas ends up winning. And I hold Kansas a very high standard. I mean, that to me is a true national championship contending basketball team. Indiana was, they were leading at points in that game. They looked good. They looked like they matched Kansas's talent level. I wouldn't say Indiana's a bad team. I think they're wildly inconsistent because then we had 16-20 party. John, what did you just say about Indiana? I don't think they're very good. Yeah, I'm with him. I do. I think it's a team win.
I don't think anybody in the Big Ten's very good, so I do believe in Nebraska ball.
I wouldn't say they're bad. I think they're inconsistent. Because then after that loss to Kansas, then we're watching them at 16-20 the party, and they're losing to Morehead State. They end up coming back and winning that game, but they're losing, and so you're like, ooh, well, that's not a great look. So, yeah, I think they're wildly inconsistent. I think their guards are not great. I think they've got a good front court. I think Khalil Ware is a stud.
Nice pants. That's about it.
Well, and I think Renew and Khalil Ware I think those guys are good players. Malik Renew. And again, consistency. I think you could probably make that argument for a lot of teams in the Big Ten. It's a consistency thing. But I wouldn't say that was because Nebraska was favored. Favored by 4.5, Matt. They covered, by the way. But they also
teams do.
They smoked them. They didn't make it
All right, so we landed at Le Bourget, just a few miles away from Charles de Gaulle Airport. We might take off from Charles de Gaulle Airport next time, but we will depart from Paris and figure out where we're going to go next. I think we're going to go kind of head northeast, head back to the coast, so we can eventually see Mont Saint-Michel, or however you pronounce that, and see some more sights of France. But that will be next time on Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 World Tour.